dilemma right now is, what do I do with my other nipple? Today, we are talking about boobs! Everything you wanted to know and probably didn't want to know about boobs and augmentations and reconstructions and mastectomies. All of those things. So I posed again, I went to Instagram and I posed, I asked for y'all to ask me questions. And apparently, nobody cares about anything to do with boobs beyond, can I see yours? No, duh, that's not happening. So I got like one decently good question and somebody asked me, are you considering going smaller or larger? Well, duh, I'm going bigger. If I gotta lose my boobs, we're gonna get a perk out of this. They're gonna be bigger. Now, my mom's been trying to talk me out of this because she's like, your back is gonna hurt and you're gonna hate it. Mom, I'm a bodybuilder. My back is strong. And if I have to make it stronger, I will. No problems. End of discussion. So, also, fun fact, I'm usually in Florida this time of year. My family vacations. Look, there's little things flying. It's fine. They vacation in Florida every year. We go for like a month. I know that's kind of ridiculous, but we all have pretty flexible jobs and things, so we get to just kind of take off and go hang out in Florida for a month. But this year, my boob tried to kill me, so I'm here cutting it off. In the world of ridiculous things that I say to people now to make them uncomfortable, I actually told somebody this week, I'm cutting off my own boobs, so if you think I have a problem cutting you out of my life for acting up, you don't know me very well. If I can cut off my own body parts with no problems, you better act right. That's how I feel about it. That's how everybody should feel about it. No toxicity in 2019. Exactly. And no cancer either. It's all going goodbye. So, to get started about boobs, I want to briefly touch on self-breast exams. Why? Because they're important. 1 in 4 women find their own breast cancer. If that number is higher, that means that we're catching the breast cancers earlier on. So a good friend of mine, Alan Rose, she started a campaign actually yesterday. It launched called Self-Examgram, and she encourages you and anybody else who sees this to take a picture just holding your breast because hello, that gets people's attention and it makes a point. Holding your breast and then talking about your experience with self-exam or whoever has been affected by breast cancer in your life. Super important. I jumped on board because I wish that I had found my breast cancer earlier. Doctors are pretty certain that my breast cancer has probably been here for 7 years. So I had 7 years in which I could have found this, but I wasn't doing self-exams, so I had no idea it was there. I could have gotten rid of this a long time ago, and it probably would have been way less extensive at that point. But alas, here we are, going to be talking about mastectomies. So transitioning from do-yourself breast exams into what happens now that you realize you have to get rid of a breast cancer lump. So there's a couple options. You can try for a lumpectomy or a full mastectomy, which is a removal of all of the breast tissue. Doctors' opinions are going to differ on this, and it'll be based on your case and what type of cancer you have. But typically the smaller masses that are like under 1 centimeter or around 1 centimeter can be removed by lumpectomy. So they just go in and they take out the little section of cells all around the tumor, and then they treat you with radiation to kill off anything else that might be in that area, and hopefully it's gone. In my case, my mass is reading a different size on everything we measure it with. My first ultrasound in Nashville showed that it was like 1 centimeter, and then the mammograms are now showing it's like 3 centimeters, so they have no idea what size it actually is. It's somewhere between 1 and 3 centimeters. So it's honestly best and safer for me to just opt for a full mastectomy. The choice was mine to do one side where it is affected or both sides, because this side is not affected yet. And I chose to just take them both off because I'm so young. They don't know if there's a genetic component. I'm negative for all the genes that we can test for, but that doesn't mean that I'm negative for everything that actually exists, because we keep learning more things every day. So I'm taking them both off. Now, you might be wondering what happens in a mastectomy, and I brought my lovely visual aids to help you understand. So here's these boobs. I'm a really bad artist. This is why I don't draw things ever, because these look like real boobs. They don't match at all. So in a mastectomy, there's a couple ways that you can do the incisions, depending on where your cancer is located. For me, my cancer is right here, so this nipple has to go bye-bye, for sure, cannot. So what will happen is they will actually cut a circle around my nipple, take it out, and then when they sew me up, I'll have a little scar that's just vertical, horizontal. I can speak English. Horizontal scar across. They can also, if you can keep your nipple, in nipple-sparing mastectomies, they can go underneath the breast in the mammary fold, or they can do an incision kind of over the nipple, so you have a scar that's kind of just along the areola at the top. Of course, if you need to lose lymph nodes, that's over here on this side. So on my left side, they will be taking one lymph node, so I'll have a scar over under my armpit, and then I'm going to definitely have the horizontal lovely scar on my left side. On my right side, they gave me the option of choosing if I want to save the nipple or not. And let me tell y'all, that's a big decision to make. And it's freaky. It's the weirdest thing you'll have to think about ever. Like, oh, do I want to keep my own nipple or do I want to lose it? Like, what? I actually filmed some footage. I've been thinking about this in depth all week, and I got to the gym and I filmed some footage, so hopefully we can cut to that and show you my ridiculousness as I'm sitting there literally all week long. That's just popping into my head, like, what do I do about this spare nipple now? Like, what do I do with it? So hopefully we can show you that. And then the biggest part of mastectomy that I think you have to understand is they are removing as much breast tissue as possible. It is not possible to remove 100% of your breast tissue. Anywhere from 2 to 5% is going to be left behind because it'll cling to your chest wall, it'll cling to other areas that they just can't get. Now they're going to do their absolute best to get as much of it out as they can, because even that little 5% that gets left behind still is at risk for developing cancer in the future. So a mastectomy does not eliminate your chance of breast cancer. If you're going to develop another breast cancer, it's still possible because your tissue is still there. It's important after mastectomies to continue to get your yearly exams and your checkups just to make sure that that tissue that is left behind is okay. So that's what they're doing in mastectomy. They're going in, they're taking out all of your breast tissue. So it's kind of like liposuction for your boobs. That means it's going to hurt a little bit. Now let's talk about augmentation and reconstruction. Totally different things, huh? I can tell you about both because I'm going to have done both. So when I was 20, I did an augmentation, and I chose at the time to do a saline implant under the muscle. 20 years old, the FDA does not approve you for silicone implants until you're 22, and I was 20, so saline was my option. So I chose saline implants underneath the muscle, where they go in and they actually lift your muscle up and they put the implant underneath the muscle so that your muscle, it's behind your muscle, behind your breast tissue, behind your skin. So I'm in really good shape because for reconstruction, that's where they put your implant, is behind the muscle, so that you have something else besides your skin just holding it in place, because you have no more breast tissue. And so in augmentation, it's pretty simple. You get to choose where you want your incisions. Some people do them through the belly button. I don't know how that one works, but I did underneath in the mammary fold, and they just slide the implant in, fill it up, and you're done. You're good to go. So with reconstruction, things are obviously more difficult because now you have no breast tissue. And the safest way to get a good final result is to do what they call tissue expanders. So during your mastectomy, once your breast surgeon has removed as much tissue as she possibly can, she goes in, or the plastic surgeon comes in and inserts a tissue expander, which is a saline bag that has a little metal port on it so that they can find it with a magnet later on. And they lift your muscle up and put that underneath. I'm lucky, I already have a pocket created for that. Some people now, they can do a biomesh. Instead of lifting up the muscle, they can like create a little biomesh pocket for you. There are some more risks with that, obviously, because you're inserting more foreign objects. Anytime you put more foreign objects in your body, the risk of infection goes up. So those are things to think about. They can also, actually, I think they can take muscle from your lats, but that was not something I was willing to do because that sounds horrible. And I'm a bodybuilder, so something tells me like I would never get that. Wherever they took it from would just never come back right. And then I'd hit my back pose and they'd be like, what's up with her back? And I'd be like, oh, it's in my boob. It's fine. Yeah, that being said, I'm going to be using my muscle in the pocket that's already created. Now, the tissue expanders are fun because every few weeks or however well your skin will take to expansion process, they go in, they find it, they stick you, and they fill you up. Slowly and gradually, like a gas tank. Kind of weird. It's fine. They will expand you to the size that you want to get to, or up until your skin says, I'm not going to stretch anymore. Because they do keep a very close eye on your skin and making sure you don't develop any skin necrosis or any like areas of just very, very thin skin, because if your skin's not thick enough to hold the back, it can be messy. So the plastic surgeons keep a watch on you through the expansion process, and the size that you get to is pretty much 100% dependent on how well your skin stretches. My plastic surgeon is pretty positive that we can get me back to the size that I currently am, and I'm not having it. I keep being like, well, I'm going to try to go bigger than that. And he's like, okay. It just depends on how your skin stretches. So what am I doing? Drinking lots of water, because that helps skin's elasticity. And I know this is probably ridiculous. I talked to one of my friends who's a doctor about it, and I'm taking some collagen peptides, just basically just protein. It gets broken down the same, but placebo effect, maybe it will work. That's my thought, at least. So that is how reconstructions work. I think we've talked about everything there. The other thing about reconstructions is most of the time women don't have nipples afterwards. Oh, that would be me. I think I am pretty sure I have decided to do away with the other nipple. The pros and cons all weighed. The people who I polled and asked, all of whom went, you realize you have to make this decision, right? And I was like, fine, I have to make it. I think for me personally, that symmetry is what I'm going for, as opposed to trying to stay as natural as possible and keep as much of myself. For me personally, I think symmetry would make me happier in the long run. So bye bye nipples. What am I going to do about that? You have some options as a reconstruction patient. You can reconstruct nipples with tissue. They can actually do that. They can like create some for you out of other tissue in your body, which is all fine and dandy, kind of weird, pretty cool. Glad that science can do that for you now. So if that's something you want to do, totally go for it. I don't think that would work for my lifestyle, because the nipples, when they recreate them, tend to always be, they're not flat. They're not smooth. You are always going to have to wear a padded bra of some kind. And I don't think that that's going to fit my lifestyle very well, being in swimsuits as often as I am. And, you know, they're not always as padded as they could be. So I think for me, that would not work. You can also do nipple tattoos, 3D nipple tattoos. Those things are crazy. There are some people who specialize in them here in the US, and they look they look so real, it's unreal. And they're like, it's easy to do. They just take you in, it's literally just a tattoo. It's as simple as that. And then there's the wave of things I think a lot of the younger girls who are fighting breast cancer are opting for, which is to not tattoo back on a nipple at all, but to tattoo on something that you just really like. I've seen girls that do kind of cool flower things all over. I've seen some really cool things. I saw a girl who just did some bars. She had some very extensive scarring, and it's just really, really neat. So I am leaning towards that, honestly. And I haven't decided on anything, and it'll probably be more than a year before the scars in the area are ready to be tattooed, because after the expansion process, you do have to have a second surgery. So once your tissue expanders are to the point that you want to be, like the size, or your skin says, hey, we're done stretching, they schedule you and they swap them for your silicone implants. And silicone is heavy. I held one of those bags and I was like, okay, they are pretty heavy, but they're the gummy kind now, so they're safer. Don't freak out. Don't freak out about them. And that second surgery is supposedly way easier to heal from than the mastectomy itself. I've been through an augmentation before. It's pretty simple. You're up within the next... I was up actually modeling 3 days later, and then I was at a singing competition 5 days later, and they just taped me into a little bra. It was like all tape. I was just basically taped together over the stitches and everything, and my boobs are like way up here, because with augmentations, they go way up here, and they have to like settle, and they take time. With the tissue expanders and everything you do with reconstruction, you don't have that as much. So once they get that final lovely silicone implant in, you start your healing process, and then you're done, and then you can think about nipple tattooing once your plastic surgeon says you're okay. Or, in my case, non-nipple, but just tattooing. We'll see what happens. Technology has seriously come a long way in all of this. I have seen before and afters of mastectomy patients where they seriously look better than they did before mastectomy, and my fingers are crossed that I will be really pleased with the final results. And I think you'll get your best results if you just stick to and follow what your doctors say. Something I talked to another person about that was very important is make sure that the surgeon doing your mastectomy is a breast surgeon, not just a general surgeon, not just somebody who can do breasts, but somebody who specializes in breast surgery. One, you're probably not going to hurt as bad because they know more about the breast, and your recovery time will be better and less painful after surgery, and you will have better results once you get through the plastics phase. Make sure that your doctors are talking to you and that you like your surgeons as well. That's a huge part, because you'll be more likely to listen to them if you really believe that they know what they're doing, know what they're talking about, they answer all of your questions, and they tell you why. So make sure of that. That's super important. And don't be hard on yourself, because this is a long process, and this is going to be weird because this is not something normal people go through. So you have to be a little bit gentle with yourself through the process. Don't be too hard on your body as it's going. The tissue expanders, I have heard, can be very scary because they're not shaped like a normal breast implant usually. They get weird and lumpy, and you're not going to look like that after final reconstruction. Don't freak out. They did tell me, as far as there's 2 types of implants, they were doing the silicone afterwards. They're not really doing the teardrop shape anymore because there are some other health risks that come with that one because it's a textured implant. So they're not really doing that anymore. So they are just pretty much doing your basic circular plain round implant, which is fine. If you don't like the way that it looks or the way that it sits on your body, they can take fat from other parts of your body. Typically, they like to take like lower stomach or inner thigh, and they will inject the fat up on the top so that you get a smoother, more natural look. I'm not a good candidate for that, unfortunately, because I don't carry enough fat here or on my inner thigh. It's all on my backside. And they don't like that fat, apparently, which is fine. It's fine. So I didn't talk about this. I'll mention it briefly because I was not eligible for this, so I don't know as much about this process. You can do a tissue reconstruction instead of an implant. Again, I'm not eligible for this because I don't have enough fat and other tissue to take and make into breasts. They just looked at me and they went, nope, you're not eligible for this, so we're not going to talk to you about it. I was like, okay, That's fine. I will deal with that. I already have implants. I'm used to them. Not a big deal. That's what I want to do. The implant surgery is easier to recover from. I do know a tissue reconstruction is a little more painful. Obviously, because you're taking fat from somewhere else and moving it. That's going to hurt. If you yourself have any questions, doctors have told you something and you don't understand it and you want to talk to somebody else about it, you want to talk to somebody else who's your age or is going to be going through this, please don't be afraid to message me. You can leave comments here in the comment section, but if it's a question that you're not really comfortable with, find me on Instagram, send me a message. I'm more than happy to talk about anything and everything. I'm not shy. I don't care. Again, I think I said this in my last video, but it's not a big deal. Just message me. I'm more than happy to talk to you. I've got links that I'll be providing to those sources in the comment section or right underneath in the description. So don't worry about anything. If you want to ask it, feel free. Next week, again, this is going to be geared towards those of us who are younger going through this, because fertility is a real issue when you might be having to undergo chemo in your 20s. Why? Because you are still of childbearing age and chemo does not play nice with your eggs. So, going to get to talk about all that fun stuff and family planning because I've just gone through some of the most fun things and I will have lots to say on that subject. So until next time, thank you for joining. Send me your questions about boobs. Bye. Oh, you're still there? Okay, so if you like this video, you know what to do. Please like and subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions, again, leave them in the comments. Find me on social media. I would love to have a conversation with you and do my best to answer all of your crazy questions.